All right, good day. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I know we have several people, or actually a lot of people joining us via the web. We want to thank you guys for all taking a little bit of time out of your busy days to join us. We're here in beautiful Napa, and so we really appreciate the fact that you guys took time, even if you're maybe not in Napa, joining us. And then we also have an audience today who's going to be joining in, or is here already in Napa, so we appreciate all of you taking a few moments out of your time as well to join us. So what we're really trying to get done, I thought they were going to follow me around. What we're really trying to get done today is trying to decide, and as a group, trying to figure out what does customer success look like today. And most importantly, I think, how do we take everything that we're doing in a day-to-day role or a strategic role that we're doing, and how do we plan it for success, right? And today was a really interesting discussion this morning around how do we look at customer success, how do we perhaps challenge some of the status quo, how do we look at what we're doing, and how do we can make it better. So I'd like to introduce some of the folks that are going to be here today. To my right is Meaghan Sullivan. She is the head of global channels at SAP.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. This is a great location.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's in Napa. And then we have Larry Cornmesser, who is the head of channels at Infoblox. Thank you, Lori. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
And then we have Larry Walsh, and Larry Walsh is the CEO and the founder over at 2112 Group. So we're going to go through a little bit of a recap of what we discussed today. It was a spirited discussion, to say the least. It was a way of us trying to bring some guidance and some direction to what we can all do to make what we're trying to achieve, which is growth in the channel, better. So Larry, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about where we ended up today, and you and I can go back and forth around the framework. And I think it's great that we've got Meaghan and Laurie who are living this on a day-to-day basis, right? And they can fill in the color on what really works, what doesn't work, and where we want to go.
So I couldn't agree more that we are in a period of, we try not to use the word transformation, but let's face it, we are in a period of transformation. I am fervently of the belief that transformation is something that is ongoing, it's always happening. It's a matter of which direction we're going in. Now, Steven and I approached this from diametrically different perspectives. Actually, I'll start with you, Steven. Is that Steven came in, preaching about this wonderful magical land of unicorns, fairies, lollipops, and a whole lot of pixie dust. I'm not quite sure where he got it from.
Wait. Okay, let's not confuse positivity and pixie dust, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that, look, there's a reason there's a channel, which was very much validated today, right?
Well, no, but I came, and look, and I'm going to say this up front, I don't actually believe this in its totality, but I came in and took the perspective that we're all going to die. This channel has 5 years left to live.
Wait a minute.
I like the pixie dust.
Okay, the only thing Larry and I agree on is that Larry's going to die at some point, right?
Whoa, you're wishing my death already. No, but we have to actually play out these different scenarios in order for us to identify things that do need to change. And I think one of the things that to call it a lively discussion, I believe, is an understatement. I think that we had a multiple threads of where things we have to unpack and say, what is it that we have to do in order to say if we are satisfying the customer, how do we have to satisfy the partner and incorporate the partner into the customer journey and make them an integral part of that? And I think we had a few different touch points on that. So.
Yeah, Laurie, maybe you can start with.
Well, let me start with. It is absolutely refreshing that you come to these forums and to be able to have two very different point of views that can actually fit in the same room was actually really fun. And not talking about sort of the normal sort of status quo was actually very lively, because when I just entered the room, we got into some heavy topics, and I hadn't even gotten to my first cup of coffee yet. So, thank you for that. But what I'll say is that I think that there's a lot of things that we do because that's where we grew up and we're prescribed to kind of do it. And so why do we have 3 levels in the program? Why do we go about marketing campaigns in this way? Why do we have enablement structured in the way that we do? It's because that's what everyone else has always done, and so we kind of follow it. So I thought it was really genius of you to give us permission to pause and sort of think about that differently and say, is there a different way to do that? And why are you doing it? Does it align to your business model? Are your customers sort of asking for that? And get back to what is the customer experience that you want to have? And then what are all the things that you need to line up behind that? So
That's a great point. And there was somebody, Julie Parrish was in the meeting as well too, and I don't know if you guys know her, but
I've never heard of her.
You never heard of her?
No.
I don't know, but she's pretty smart. Right?
I've heard that.
And she's the one that said, take it up a level.
Right.
And I thought that that's always great when you're in an organization. And so often when we get smart people in the room, we start to think about how do we solution the problem. And I think where we went today was, what's the problem?
Right.
And Larry, okay, I won't give him credit for it, but Larry did come up with a good question, and he said, what if there was no channel? Could you go to market, and could you be successful? And I think we don't ask ourselves that enough, right?
We all swallowed at
right,
that
we're
moment.
in the channel. What if there was no indirect channel?
But it's fair.
Look, we're all smart. We'll all find gigs, right? The question is, are we doing the best for our company around that?
But I think, that's part of this, is that it's not just even stepping back and saying, can we do it differently? And I think this is a large part of our conversation this morning, is that we don't actually ask ourselves why we are doing this, and assign the roles in the right way, and have different, have expectations. Something that I talk about a lot is, if you're just looking to say, I need partners because I want to generate revenue, that's not good enough. And it's going to be increasingly, that proposition is going to be increasingly less valuable and increasingly less relevant as we continue to get into a more of a customer experience-driven era.
But I think, too, it's interesting we use the word channel. I come at it, maybe I'm in between both of your views, that we don't call it the channel anymore, it's the ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's the types of partners are no longer kind of channel partners. It's a variety of partner types. They're doing different things, adding different value. And when you talk about customer experience and have that best customer experience, many times when you get to the final sale to that customer, there could be 2 or 3 different ecosystem partners doing that deal together to come together for that customer. And so the whole constellation of the ecosystem has to work together in order to get the best customer experience, to get those really deep, significant, large deals.
But think about it. I think your point about ecosystems is important, because it's not about selling a unit. And unfortunately, I think large part of our industry's history is about pushing boxes or pushing licenses. There is not one company in the business that can satisfy all the customers' needs. There is not. The one-stop shop is a unicorn. It doesn't exist. And so you need. And I've jokingly said before, if we build data centers or IT systems the way that, or we build cars the way that we sell and build IT systems, nobody would be able to drive, because you couldn't put all the requisite components together. So Meaghan, your point about ecosystems is spot on.
Yeah. I think the other interesting thing that sort of came up in the conversation was about, so we acknowledge a lot of times that, okay, maybe we're not asking the right questions, but then when we pause, or we've had moments where we've tried to be innovative, that our companies just aren't ready for that, because they don't want to disrupt the business that's going. So there is a balance to this as well, which is there's a time and a place for being disruptive and innovative, that I think we talked about, but I don't think we sort of ended with what does that really look like.
I was going to say, what is that time and place? Is it every year? Some of the most successful, some of the conversations where individuals were talking about their biggest successes were individuals that were willing to say, hey, I'm going to look at this on a blank slate. And every year, I'm going to say, all right, blank slate this whole thing. And I think that's really hard to do from a lot of perspectives, right? Mostly it takes a lot of work, right? And we do tend to find ourselves even getting benchmarked around, here's what an organization's doing. Here's what they're doing with their channel. And I'm just saying, I think it's easier to say that and take it and sell that than it is to say, wait a second, how is all this aligning? What's the biggest mission statement to align with the organization? And how do we clean this all away? Because, okay, I'm going to ask you guys. Larry and I can sit here, and it's very easy for us to say, if I was doing this and running a channel, I would clean slate every year. I'd tell my executives, just give me bandwidth. I'm going to make it happen. And I'd just go do it. But we're pundits, right? So
We're
live in
living it every day.
Yeah. So, I mean,
so
are we crazy?
Well, yes, obviously.
And medicated.
And medicated. Great.
No, I think, a couple things. I'd say, first of all, you have to keep the fundamentals in place, too. So you can't just clean slate. There are a lot of partners in the ecosystem that are pretty traditional, and if you get too innovative on them, you're going to break them. So it's that fine balance of keeping the fundamentals in place, but then adding little layers of value on and kind of getting them up to speed so they can make that transition with you. So yes, it's fun to go into a room and clean slate. And we do that. Like once a year, we'll do big ideas and ideation and generate all these cool things. But how many we actually put up and execute and that work is a kind of a different story, because is the market, our customers and partners ready for that? Yeah. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah, I agree. The last two companies I've had the privilege of working for, I've come in as kind of the channel chief, and I've had the opportunity to lay out all the puzzle pieces, as Larry knows, because he's always my hotline. So, and as I'm trying to figure out the puzzle pieces, I dream a little bit and I say, here's what I would do and here's how it would look like. And then we just went through this where I do inventory and I say, okay, so did we do the things that we thought we were able to do? And then why didn't we do them? Because the company wasn't ready, because the market wasn't ready, because we weren't ready. We didn't want to sell the story too early, right? Because we're still doing basic math. And if we started doing advanced math, they might over-rotate and go, well, then why do we need you at all, right? So you have to, it's the time and the place to be innovative and in the stories that you're telling. But some of the things that we didn't do in fiscal year 19, we're rolling into this year. So it's still a great inventory list that I kind of bring into each of the years.
Now, I do want to add on one point, though, is that when we get innovative and when we bring out the new stuff, like artificial intelligence and machine learning, the chatbots and all that stuff, we find the partners and the customers that love it the most are the startups. And they're the emerging growth companies and the ones coming out of the gate fresh themselves. And they love all that innovation, and they will adopt it and go faster with it. And so we tend to pilot more in what we call our general business or SME space, and then we can take that up. But it's different when you have a company that's kind of young and growing and willing to take risks with it.
So let me ask, Lori and Meaghan this, is that do you find with this level of innovation and trying to find that right time, that time and place to do these changes, that the expectations are changing, that you're trying to solve for something different than you had before, say, in the earlier parts of your career?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it's moving so fast.
Yeah, it does.
It's moving so fast.
And it's hard to keep up with where it's moving. But it's always good to go back to what problem are we trying to solve, because just like when MSP started, right? We all remember that wave, and then there were so many different definitions of it. I finally went to Larry and said, I've Googled it, and there's 20 different definitions of this thing. Like, what is it really?
I wrote 19 of them.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of the same thing, which is, you have to keep up on the innovation, but you also have to be very clear about what you're trying to solve and how it aligns to your company's business and what you're doing for customers, right?
I have to say that we've got a pretty cool team. Actually, Liz Martin is in the room and led the team for us, and constantly going out and looking for social innovations and digital marketing and who are the cool startups, whether they're here in the Valley. We're lucky we live in the hotbed here. What are the competition using? What's going on in the emerging markets? And Liz has been able to bring a bunch of those in and pilot them and do some pretty extraordinary stuff. So I think it's super important to also give permission and empowerment to your teams to have the time and a little bit of budget to go do that too.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the things that I think, Lori, you brought this up, that ties, I think, into this is the big C and the little C. And by the way, we are in Napa, right? So champagne versus sparkling wine. Sorry, I have to throw that in there, right? If it's from Champagne, it's got a capital C. If it's not, it's basically a sparkling wine, right? But we talked a lot about big C and little c, and I think one of the things that came up as we're driving through, look, how do you actually manage change? And several people talked about, if you think about channel in a big C perspective and you don't understand the personalization of it, how do you really connect with that partner from your mission statement? Because you're basically showing up with a business plan with 26 tabs on a spreadsheet, right? There's someone in the audience I know very well who used to be in an organization that would partners show up at a business plan with 26 tabs on a spreadsheet. So I love the little C, and how do we do that? And how do we become more intimate? And how do we get that mission statement to them, right?
So I have the luxury that I have a smaller group of partners of which to enable. So a lot of what I do is very personal. My focus on certain partners for certain markets and my focus on partners for certain segments of the business. And I can touch all the ones that I want to touch personally, because part of what our commitment is getting them invested behind our goals. I share with them, I just came out of the board meeting, I've got my advisory council, I want to share with you, here's what they said, here's how we're showing up, here's where you're fitting in. And they love that because they want to be invested in my success. And I want them to be able to understand where they're fitting into that and where they're showing up. And it becomes reciprocal when you do that. So I'm a big believer in kind of sharing the goals. I'm also a big believer in sort of focus. And I think that is how I've always been successful, is being maniacally focused on a few things and doing them really well. I kind of think about it like a plate spinner. I'm going to pick up 3 plates and I'm going to spin them, and I'm going to get that done before I pick up anything else. And those are going to be the most impactful things that I do. And my partners understand what those are, because I'll go to them and say, here's the one thing I need you to do. If there's one thing I need you to do, it's this thing. I need your help in SLED. I need you to get me into SLED. This is your primary, business model. Help me just do that one thing. Don't forget about everything else. Just figure that out. And they love that. And this year, I'm proud to say we've had 5 partners over a significant amount of revenue. We've shifted the mix of our business model so that our platinums are driving about 80% of our revenue today. And all of that because we had focus with the right partners kind of doing the right things.
That actually begs a question for me. So I don't have that luxury. We've got 19,000 partners. Yeah. I know the big companies are, it's a little more of a struggle.
Right.
And it's that question that I think is part of this transformation going on, is how much do you enable and high touch the partners versus how much do you automate and long tail them, and kind of the balance between the two. And I think a lot of companies are struggling with that right now, of kind of where to put the resources and the budgets and everything, and kind of.
Yeah.
So Larry, I'd be curious to hear your perspective on that. We've talked about it a little bit offline, but.
Well, no, I mean, I think that we talked about this morning, is that there is, when we were talking about channels with a big C and big bold letters and little channels, there is no channel. There's different routes to markets. Your direct sales are a route to market. Your marketplaces, Meaghan, you have a marketplace. Everybody, what was it, Tuesday was Prime Day, so we were all buying whatever we needed to in discounts. So
stuff we didn't even need, I was buying.
I can tell you, there's
another luxury I don't have.
there's a pile of cardboard boxes waiting for me to throw them away when I get home. But there's a number of different ways we can go. So I often question whether or not we even have a long tail anymore, or whether we just have a different channel segment that needs a different way of addressing. Because we can slice and dice all these routes to market in many different ways, and we'll all perform somewhat differently. And I think part of the challenges that we have, part of the challenges that you have, is trying to identify the best way of optimizing. And frankly, I want to throw it back to you, is how do we know when to give something up? How do we know that this is the time that we do not need this partner, we do not need this partner type, we do not need this route to market, and we can replace it? Because from my perspective, I see too often, let's innovate and do something different, but let's keep everything we already had.
Well, Larry, I think that goes back to the highest level question: do we need an indirect channel as a route to market? So this was a fascinating conversation that we had at lunch. Look, everybody that's either paying attention right now on this call or sitting in this room has some sort of connection with the indirect channel, right? So what happens tomorrow to all of us if there's no indirect channel? And we actually had that conversation. Larry, you specifically asked individuals, could you run your business better with no indirect channel?
Well, not necessarily the way I asked that question.
All right, that's what I heard.
Well, you were sucking on a lollipop. I mean,
Okay.
It's not that, could you do it without? And it comes down to the issue of, we have one of the participants, Jason from Bitdefender, said, we are in the channel because we're a channel first company. Why? Well, because we are. Again, not necessarily a good enough answer. We have to start thinking about this in ways of, if we're going to have an indirect channel, there has to be a reason for it. And that helps come back to defending the value question. When the board or when management comes in and says, well, why do we have all these channel partners? Why are we surrendering margin to them? Why are we investing all this money? Or they don't say investing, they'll say spend.
Right.
All this money, right?
Right.
Right. And of course, by the way, this is the time of the year, right, when they come around and they said, okay, we're halfway through the year, let's start cutting the budgets. Well, because that's the thing you do. When a car is running well, you take gasoline out of it.
Right.
Or, so how do we actually assign the value to a channel? And that comes back to the proposition for why we're here, is we're here, we need to use channels to engage the customer and ensure customer success. And if we can map the partner journey and fold it into the customer journey, then we can actually assign a different type of value to the entire ecosystem.
But I think you make a great point that partners and ecosystems are different routes for different things, right? So the different business aspects to your company, you may use different parts of the ecosystem for that. And even, this, it's not really new, but the whole ISV thing that's going on right now. So now we have some of our customers taking our technology, creating products, and now they're becoming partners, right? So there's a whole different business and growth models going out by enabling that channel to grow into different ways as well. So,
I mean, we're creating whole new channels. I think one of the fascinating things was sometimes we get very myopic around this is what our channel is, this is what our channel does, and we only pay attention to us. There was a great story today. Jennifer McCready at Steelcase was talking about, and she's transitioned over from tech into manufacturing, where a technology company just doing their thing, if we look at the circle around them of growth, has created new channels with partnerships with folks like Microsoft, right? There's literally a need now for a different route to market because technology has created a different offering. And I think it's fascinating. Sometimes we don't pay attention to how what we do spirals out beyond what we do.
Yeah, so I think the answer is channels are not going away soon. We don't have to update our resumes quite yet, right? But they are, it's changing. It definitely is changing, so it's important to kind of poke your head up and make sure that you're seeing these different models and evaluating, am I still doing the right things and for the right reasons, and if there's some different things we need to do. Is that good?
Well, I think
I think that was a key point of what we were talking about today.
I'm going to clarify something though, because Steven and I took our positions as I said, not necessarily because we actually believe. I don't believe the channel is going to go away. I don't. I believe in the model. I think it will change. I think the partner has to change. And I think that what we've been talking about, and one of the reasons why it was great having Jennifer McCready from Steelcase here, is because it's an example of how we are not living in a technology-centric world, or I should say, a technology-centric industry. We're in a technology-centric world. When we start talking about things like endpoints and networks, well, what are on those? Trucks, refrigerators, heating systems, everything is going to be connected. Everything will have an IP address. Everything needs to be managed. And as a result of that, your partner is going to change. You are going to start having real estate partners and vehicle partners and logistics partners in ways you've never had before.
Wait, Larry, are you like backtracking? I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little backtrack right here. I'm sorry.
No, clarification.
Okay, clarification. That's a clarification.
he's
right?
bringing it home is what he's doing.
No, hey, look, all I'm saying is...
I'm proving your point, so you're welcome.
Thank you, Larry, right? And by the way, we just felt like if we're going to do this, we're going to have a bunch of really smart people come spend a couple hours with us. We could either walk through, okay, here's the 3 steps to improve your existing partner program, right? And I think, look, you guys have all been to the online academies for that. What we wanted to say is, look, how do we stretch this? And I think one of the things we want to do more events like this, and we want to have more folks like all of you in the audience here, and where we want to do more of these, is we want to stretch this and say, what could we really do? And, how far beyond we're a channel company because we're a channel company can we get, right? And figure out, and you and I talked about this, Laurie, it really doesn't matter. We work for an organization, and our job of our organization is to sell as much stuff as possible, right? And to dominate the market. And do we really care? I mean, I'm just saying honestly, how it gets there, there's a lot of good reasons, and Julie Parrish brought up some really good economic reasons why the channel makes sense. But in the end, if that's what we're thinking versus how is the overall success of the completion from what we do to how it ultimately ends up at the consumer,
I'm going to disagree with you.
all right.
So, because
That's the first time today.
Right. So when we keep looking forward to the future, well, what's old is new. What you just said is our job is to sell a bunch of stuff. It's not. Drucker said it best 60, 70 years ago. The purpose of any enterprise, the purpose of any company is to capture, to create a customer. And the customer will then consume, and then when it consumes, we will make money. Making money, selling things is a byproduct. It's a function of our business. It's not the objective. And so that's the reason why my opinion is that the reason why we need channel partners is to ensure not only that we capture a customer, but increasingly to keep them. You know, we did touch on this today about recurring revenue and how we're all moving to a consumption-based services model. It's not the sale. The initial sale is not the part that we need to focus on. It is the retention of the customer.
Customer
Okay.
experience.
That's
is-
right.
Can I-
So we're back to square one.
Can I agree to your disagreeing with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I can do that. But I think it was a fascinating conversation that someone said, I'm not sure who in the group said, look, when you're looking at market enablement funds, what is the most important side to that? Is it enablement or is it the marketing piece? And to a person in that group, they said, and we were talking about something really simple like MDF. Everybody said it is the enablement market development side that really matters.
Yeah.
You agree? What do you think?
About
Either one of you guys.
using dollars to enable, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and the fact, and Larry's point that he disagreed
Yeah.
with me, and
Well,
now I agree with Larry.
I mean, I'll tag on to Larry. I think at the end of the day, you want to make your customers fans, you know, have a bunch of super fans in the market, especially in today's buying journey. It's the customers that are going to make you successful on how they talk about their experience with you, their product with you, how they talk to their peers, how it starts spreading. And then what Larry and I have been talking about is what's your partner experience to the customer experience. And a lot of companies are so focused on customer experience, not really looking at partner experience. And that is equally as important because it's that full value chain out. But we are just, you know, we used to speak at SAP in our organization as, oh, we're partner first. Now we are customer first, no matter what. Absolutely, our ecosystem is going to get us there. But we are laser focused on what's going on with that customer and how their experience is with us and our partners.
So Meaghan, the entire point about the partner experience, we quantified that in our ease of doing business research. And the impact, if you don't think that this is important, that it's just a talking point that everyone uses to get people to cheer at a partner conference, there's a monetary impact on ease of doing business.
Big time.
Yeah.
Right. So what we found was, and this is staggering, is that you can go see for yourself on our website, is vendors that are perceived as being easier to do business with, meaning that everything from access to resources to ordering product to getting information to communications, go down the line, it all comes down to experience. Those vendors have a 3x share of wallet with the partner over those that are more difficult to do business with. Conversely, vendors that are difficult to do business with have to compensate their partners 30 to 40% more than other vendors. So there's a real cost to all of this.
Yep.
No, and I think that all wraps back around to the whole reason. I think the impetus for this, talking to Meaghan on a regular basis, talking to Larry, talking to a lot of folks, is, you know, where is that customer success? What is customer success today? And I think it's a great topic of conversation. I think we took it up a little high level today,
Yeah.
and then brought it back to that. But ultimately, at the end, I think that is, I agree with that, is really going to be what matters. So kind of wrapping this up, last thoughts. So, and I'd like to hear from each one of you. So customer success today, tell me what you think is partner success today, and just general thoughts on that, and maybe just a way to kind of wrap this up is how you see that customer success and tying that into the partner. Meaghan, maybe start with you, Lori, and then Larry, I'm going to let you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think at SAP we talk a lot about next generation partnering. We just launched kind of a whole new thing, and we're looking at kind of what we're talking about here, like what is the ecosystem of the future, and how is that next gen partnering? And we are looking for partners that have a customer first mentality. And so kind of how it goes through the value chain. The customer is first, and their experience. The partner experience is next, and then back at SAP and that whole chain. And so we are absolutely laser focused on how do we pay attention to it, make it better, use Qualtrics. We're surveying right now all 19,000 of our partners with our own technology, which is pretty cool. We'll see what the results say, but you know how we take that data and what we do with it, I think is going to be really critical for our success.
I would agree. At Infoblox, we are focused on the customer experience. And we've also started to understand the partners that are like in terms of mindset and And so that's been helpful to kind of match them from a cultural standpoint. It makes it easier to engage with them. Part of what we're doing is we still do a lot of really old-fashioned advisory councils and different things to kind of get a pulse for that, again, because the scope of what we're dealing with is quite smaller. But you're absolutely right, and I think the customer experience is changing. And so it's important to kind of listen to customers, and that's why we continue the advisory councils that we have and kind of feed those into the partner advisory councils so that they have a better view on what customers are saying. So we're trying to keep a pulse on that.
Henry Ford said that if he asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. I think that customer success is contingent upon the customer getting something more than what they anticipated or thinking more than what they need. And I see our industry, our corner of the industry where we talk about routes to market and channels is not so much about selling product, it's about selling experiences. And the role of the partner is to ensure that the customer gets more than they expected out of what they invested in. And so that's when we talk about customer experience and partner experience, it really is beyond the sale. It's about fostering and cultivating, curating a better lifetime engagement.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, the audience, for joining us. I think a fascinating next version of this is how did B2C affect this, right? And maybe I'm totally riffing, Larry. I think one of the next things we could talk about is, as I listen to this, I'm going, okay, why have I heard all this before, right? And B2C flowing into B2B and how we now treat everyone the same that way, and we have the capabilities to do this now, right? I think would be a fascinating topic to take and dig into a little bit more. So once again, thank you guys, everybody, for joining us from the webcast, and thank you, everybody, for joining us in the audience. And we look forward to seeing you on the next event that we do here at the Channel Pulse.